Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, a corner trinket shelf. Well, this week's show idea has been on my list of things to do for quite some time. It's just a matter of getting around to it. It's not a difficult project. It's really nothing extravagant and nothing that even a beginner couldn't handle. But it all starts off with milling some 1/2 inch thick cherry. Well, now that we have our cherry milled to 1/2 inch thick, we're going to take it over to the jointer. We're going to joint one edge to give us a flat and square reference edge, and then we're going to take it over to the table saw and we're going to rip this cherry into 5 inch wide pieces. Well, this shelf will be built in sections and then all put together in the end. And our sections will look like this. It will just be basically a 3-sided box. That's it. That is as far as we want to go. I'm going to be using finger joints to join these sections together here just to get a little bit of extra strength. The way the shelf is set up, really, you're never going to see those finger joints, so it sure as heck isn't for visual aspect of the project. So because I'm using finger joints, I need to, in this piece here, I want these shelves to be square. So for this piece here, because it will sink 1/2 inch into this piece, I need to cut a length of 5.5 inches. This piece here will be identical at 5.5 inches, and this end piece right here is going to be 6 inches. So depending on how many shelves you want, and each one of these little 3-sided boxes represents 2 shelves, depending on how many shelves you want, for each one you're going to need 2 pieces 5.5 inches long and one piece rather at 6 inches long. I'm going to make 3 of these sections, so, well, you could do the math how many pieces I need. So I'm going to head over to the table saw and I'm going to cut these pieces to their lengths. Well, at this point in time, I'm going to do the finger joints on the sections, the 3 sections of my shelf. Now, I will be using the Incra iBox finger jointing jig. You can use whatever method you like. This is not a video about setting up that jig, but I do have one of those, and I'll post a link in the comments or in the description below. So, without getting too much into it, I'm going to basically calibrate the jig, set it up for the finger joints that I need, and get all the finger joints cut in these 9 pieces of board. Well, with our sections cut and the finger joints cut in each one, we will just dry fit them together. And once we get them dry fit, then I will show you what we're going to do next. Well, now that all the finger jointing is done and we have rough or dry fit them together, I'll just show you how they go. Each piece will sit just like this. And now what we need to do with some of the pieces that are left is we need 2 sections to go in between here. And those 2 sections we will cut to 5 inches long. So it'd be 5 by 5 squares. So I'm gonna head over to the table saw, cut those, and then I'll come back and see you. Well, let me just see if I can give you the visual of what we're after here. So that one piece we just cut is too short. Okay, so we made a bit of an error here. That's okay. I can fix this. I'm that good, I can fix this. But let me show you what we're after. Each one of these pieces goes in between, and in my haste, I guess, I forgot to include the extra 1/2 inch that we added onto this shelf. I guess it's not that I forgot to include it. What I did was I should not have added it in the first place if I only wanted the shelf to be 5 inches wide. You can see how they separate with those now. I know it doesn't look like much. Hang on, we're getting there. So our next step here now is we need to shape some of these shelves. So each one of these corners here that are exposed, they are going to get 1 1/4 inch circle template on each one of them just to round it off so we don't have that sharp corner. Before I can do that though, I'm going to have to trim each one of these pieces to its proper length. Well, I have our lengths of our pieces corrected, and oh well, you know, it just goes to show everybody makes mistakes. You just have to learn from them, correct them, and move on. So with that done, just before I round off all of these corners, there's 2 more pieces that I forgot about. And what we're going to need is, out of that cherry, we're going to need 2 pieces, one for the top, one for the bottom, and they will be 2 inches wide each. And once you have those pieces cut, eventually they will end up being the top and the bottom edge of our shelf. So let's get these 1 1/4 inch circle templates marked on each one of these outside corners. We'll take them over to the scroll saw, we'll cut them out, and then we'll sand them up on the belt sander just to make sure that they're all nice and even. For the small little corner that it ended up being, I actually decided against the scroll saw, and we'll just do it completely here on the sander. And there we have all of our outside corners rounded off. You may also notice that I've rounded off the one corner on the top and the bottom mounting piece here. Now, we have some holes to drill at this point in time. Right here in the center of this piece here, we are going to drill a small countersunk hole for a number 8 screw. That is what will mount it to the wall. The other mounting holes will go in our base piece here and our top piece up here. We're also going to need a few holes. Now the joinery here is up to you. You can use whatever you want. If you want to connect these pieces to these ones with dowels, that is great. That if you want to do that, that is fantastic. I am going to simplify this as much as I can, and I am just going to be using some number 6 by 1 inch screws. And in order to do that, all I'm going to do is over the drill press, in each one of these pieces here, I'm going to drill and countersink a hole that is 1/4 inch in from the back edge. That way it's centered on our boards for mounting. So let me get those holes drilled in one piece, and then I'll show you what I mean. I'll come back and I'll see you. And there is our countersunk hole for our mounting here. Now it's time to get some holes drilled for mounting these blocks. I would suggest just taking a pencil and marking the faces here where you want the holes to be drilled so that you don't get confused. And there you can see those holes, and when the time comes, they will accept a number 6 by 1 inch screw, and they will screw our joining pieces together. And like I said, you don't have to use screws. That's just what I chose here. You can use, if you want hidden joinery, you can use dowels or whatever method you want. So I'm going to drill the rest of the mounting holes in this piece, and then I will come back and see you. And with all of those holes drilled, we will now take our bottom and our top section, and right in the middle, just like we did here, we will drill a countersunk hole for a number 8 screw for mounting. Well, while everything is in pieces here and just dry fit, my suggestion at this point in time is to take each one of these sections, just like this, line up your front edge here, line it up perfectly. I would clamp it together, and then I would mark and drill your pilot holes for your number 6 screws. It's a lot easier to do it now than what it will be later once this thing is all assembled. We now have all of our pilot holes drilled in all of our pieces, including our smaller mounting blocks down at the bottom and at the top of our shelf. The next thing that we need to do is sand all of the inside surfaces, and once we get that done, then we can glue these 3 finger jointed sections together. I would suggest cutting some scrap wood as a spacer for this end section so that we can place it in there while clamping to give us a good square glue up. And there we have the first of our 3 shelf assemblies glued together. So I'm going to glue our other 2 together, and when they're all dried up, then I'll come back and I'll see you. And there we have all 3 of our finger jointed sections glued together. Now we have some of the fingers are sticking proud of our flush surfaces, so that's our next step. We're going to sand these flush, and while we're at it, we're also going to sand all of our in-between pieces, the smaller mounting blocks, as well as our shelf spacers here that we messed up on the measurement of earlier. With everything sanded up really well, we're going to do the final assembly. It's really not that difficult. We're going to run a little bead of glue along each edge here, and then using number 6 by 1 inch screws and the pilot holes that we drilled earlier, we're just going to screw this whole thing together. And I'll just carry on putting the pieces together. And now the only thing left to do is give it a good sanding all over, apply your finish of choice, and mount it to your wall. And there you have it. A corner shelf for your trinkets. Guys, this project was a load of fun. I just love doing finger joints, and this project was just screaming, for me anyway, to get some finger joints in there for both strength. And as it turns out, I wasn't thinking quite clearly, but it shows on every shelf, on every top there, and it looks great. I just love the look of the finger joints. With that being said, there are so many ways that you could modify this. If you don't like the method that I used here, you don't have to do it. Let's just say, for example, you don't like the screws that I used. Don't use them. It's as simple as that. Don't use them. You could do a simple butt joint with nails. You could use dowels. You could use sliding dovetails. You could use mortise and tenon. Whatever you want to use, you can use it. You don't have to use screws if you don't want. That was just my method. The finger joints that join our 3 sections of our shelf together, you don't have to do that either. There's miters with splines. There is half lap joints. You could, you know what? You could just miter it. You could butt joint it and use dowels for joinery. You could use biscuit joints if your biscuits are small enough. There is a whole host of ways to assemble this project without having to use the way that I did it. Now, if you use screws, you may have noticed I had 2 different methods. The little stubby screwdriver, and then the second one was a ratcheting wrench with a bit that was the same as the screws that I was using. And I'm going to tell you, that screwdriver was really awkward, but that ratcheting wrench made this shelf it went together so easily. I've got bigger hands and it's hard to get in there to tighten the screws, that's all. Here's the other thing too, the dimensions I gave and screwed up and then gave again. Why are you limited to that? What if you want a bigger corner shelf? What if you want something that's 1 foot by 1 foot on each shelf? Then do it. This is your project and I'm just showing you the method that I use. It's encouraged to take those methods and run with them and do your own thing for this project. That's what turns it from my project into your project. Guys, this has been a load of fun. I've really enjoyed this one. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I hope you've enjoyed the project. I hope you're going to try this for yourself, and I honestly hope that you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.